Greetings all, Dr. X here, good to see ya. All right, on today's video, I am going to take you through the steps to move you from writing your journal article all the way to submitting it for publication. So I'm going to take you through the publication process. You'll need to do the writing, of course, but let me show you some of the steps you can follow in order to get that first peer-reviewed journal article done. Okay, so I'm going to work from the assumption that you already know the subject area or the topic you're going to focus on. Now, there's a couple of ways for you to identify the journal because that's step number one. You need to identify which journal you're going to submit your manuscript to. Now, here are a couple of ways for you to figure out which journal is best. I'm going to take you over to the Taylor and Francis website to begin with. All right, so for this example, I'm taking you to the Taylor and Francis website because it's just easy when I am showing people how to figure out metrics to figure out which journal is best for them to submit to. If you want to follow along, go ahead and go to tnfonline.com. So that's taylorandfrancisonline.com. Now, once you get to this point, you want to always click only show journals that are open for submissions, right? Because you don't want to be sitting around waiting on a journal. So then you go and you can pick it by subject, or if you already know the name of the journal, you want to look up that Taylor and Francis publishes, you can go there. But for me, let's go to humanities. I teach cultural studies, so I actually want to look at what they have available, let's say for cultural theory, right? So then you go down and a list of all the journals that publish cultural theories come up. And this one, Communication and Critical Cultural Studies, I'm reading the description. That actually sounds pretty good. I might submit to them. The aims and the scope come up, but the one thing you want to look at before you look at anything else is the journal metrics. The journal metrics will tell you what quartile that journal publishes in. Quartile 2 is good. Q1 is better, but Q2, that's good. And what you're mostly interested in is how long it's going to take them from the time you submit for you to hear back from that publication. You also want to look at the acceptance rate. So as you can see here, acceptance rate is about 17%. Don't let that scare you off. Instead, once you see that, go ahead and look at how long from hearing back on the first decision. So here, the speed of acceptance is what's important. It says 8 days on average from the time you submit to the first description. That must mean the editors are going through and doing an initial yes or no on the articles for it to be that quick. But that's quick, 8 days for a submission. This one could be a possible contender. Now, the 78 days average from submission to first post review, that's really good. It just tells you how long the publication would take. The review and revision and resubmit process, 40 days on average from acceptance to online publication. That's really good. So this one would actually probably be a contender for me. Now, once I look at all the metrics, I then look at the aim and scope of the journal and see whether or not that meets with the topic that I have and the subject matter I'll be writing on. So let's read that next. This looks good. And so if I was writing something specifically in this context, textual, discourse, or rhetorical analysis alongside auto or ethnographic or autoethnographic, yay, narrative or poetic inquiry, yep, this one would match with something that I would be writing. And so I would definitely put this one on the list. So when I go through to write my peer-reviewed journal articles, I actually pick 3 publications because what happens is you might submit it to the first one and they may say no. So you got to go on to the next one. And if you already have done all this research and identified your journals ahead of time, you're better off doing it that way. So that's how you go through and do a browse and find here on the Taylor and Francis website. The first thing is you're going to identify a journal. Other ways to identify them is look at those journals you've cited in your research and your writing in the past And for those authors you've cited, what are the journals they submitted to? Go and check out those journal pages and see if they're accepting new journal submissions. And here's a pro tip. I actually look for a lot of special issues. And I look for special issues because they're on a guaranteed time frame. It's probably not 2 or 3 years out. And they have specific requirements for the topic and subject matter they'd like to see in that journal that comes out. And so that might be a good way for you to get a quick publication by submitting a proposal to one of those special issues. So that's a pro tip. Okay, step number 2 is that you are going to write the manuscript. Now, let's go ahead and go back to that Taylor and Francis website. You want to look and see what their instructions for authors are. And it includes information like how long it can be, word limits, style guide. All of that information is contained here, including open access, and it verifies that it's peer reviewed and what that peer review process is. But it outlines all the information for you, and it usually gives you a little file you can download that has all the guidelines on it. So you'll want to go and you want to write your manuscript based on what the requirements are for the journal you're writing for. All right, step number 3 is you're going to get some feedback from peers or colleagues if you possibly can before you submit that manuscript. You're going to get it proofread. You're going to go to Grammarly or get an editor and have it proofed for errors. You're going to get all of that fixed. You'll get feedback from your colleagues because they may be able to see a gap in what you have written because they're subject matter experts as well. So you'll go and get that all checked over, and that'll take care of step number 3. Now, step number 4 then is to submit that manuscript for review. Now, all of the journals have an electronic submission process. Well, most of them, I'll say, do. In this case, Communication and Critical Cultural Studies does. It's all you have to do is click this button. It will pull up that website, and you'll need to register in order to submit a manuscript for consideration. So you'll create a new Taylor and Francis account. I already have one, so I'm not going to take you through those steps. But you'll go through the steps, you'll register, and then you'll follow their process for submitting your journal article. So that's the next step, is to get registered at the publisher website, and then you are in the peer review process. Now, the peer review process goes a little something like this. The manuscript is evaluated by the editors, and then the editors find peer reviewers out in the world to review the content of your manuscript. Those peer reviewers, it's usually 2 or 3, depending on the journal. The peer reviewers will review it for content, for accuracy, for relevance to the journal's aims and scope. That's why it's important for you to read the aims and scope. And each one of them will vote on whether or not your manuscript should go into the journal, should go to the next level of consideration for publication or not. Now, it's consideration of publication with that specific journal. It's not for all journals everywhere, it's just for that one. The editors will collect that feedback from them, and then the editors will make a decision on whether or not they want you to rewrite and resubmit, or whether they won't consider your journal article at all. So if you get a revise and resubmit, that's a good sign. It means that they still want to consider it. All right, but let's say that they come back to you and instead say that this is a rejection, like we don't want to revise and resubmit, we don't want to see this journal article again. That's fine. What you do is you take that journal article and you can take their feedback to see whether or not you agree with some of the feedback from the reviewers. And if you do and you want to make changes, do that. But if not, you just move on to the next journal. You submit your manuscript at the next journal. That's why you picked more than one in the beginning, because sometimes you get rejected and you understand why. Sometimes you get rejected and you don't understand why. Either way, you need to keep moving in the process. And so what you want to do then, go ahead and submit it to the next journal until you're at the point where you're ready for revise and resubmit and it's ready for publication. Now, the last step is acceptance, right? So after you've gone through, you found the right journal, you've written your manuscript, you've gone through all of the revise and resubmits, because it may be more than one. You've gone through all of those, and now you get your acceptance letter. You get notified that your journal article has been accepted and that it will be published in an upcoming copy of the journal or online in their online publication. And that is all it takes in order for you to be published as a peer-reviewed journal author. And it takes a minute to get used to the process, especially if you're not used to getting critical feedback from people. It takes a minute. So that, I would say, that is the process, and those are the steps for getting a peer-reviewed journal article. Hey, thanks so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you engaging with the content here on The Womanist Scholar. Now, if you haven't already done so, please feel free to click the like button and also think about subscribing. That way you'll be notified whenever another video like this one comes out. Thanks so much for watching and have a terrific day.